Hello, my name is Jake Jones, and welcome to the very first episode of my own show, Out of the Woods. I'm here today, really as an act of service and celebration for the progress I've made in my recovery and the progress I have yet to come. And I've been thinking a lot and talking a lot with lots of different people, and considering the platform that we have, what better way to give back than to try and help people. So I'm basically here now to be completely open and honest about all the things that you could struggle with in your day-to-day life. But mostly we're here to talk about struggles with recovery, grief, and how to navigate a world that you don't recognize anymore. And, that's about what I got so far. We've been trying to scramble for intros, and we're just going to roll with it. We're going to keep going with it. And I think this is also a good thing for me because, as my producer / best friend knows, I hate releasing anything that I record or do, and I'm way too critical, and I think this will be a way to get over that too. But for the most part, welcome to Out of the Woods. My name is Jake Jones, and we're going to talk about recovery today. So, recovery is fun, and I mean that in the most literal sense. Because if you look at it like it's going to be scary or dangerous or life-threatening, you're also correct. But for me, a lot of the ways to look at it is almost like a game, a chess match even. And for me, I don't know. It just I get a level of enjoyment and amusement out of discovering more about myself. It's not fun in the sense that, like, playing Halo with your friends is fun, or going out and partying would be fun, or going on a boat or swimming, whatever it is. But it is fun if you're able to find joy in it, which is what I'm trying to help everybody do. I think a major problem with sobriety and recovery and the way that it's approached is that it is treated almost too seriously and also not seriously enough. And there's a very fine line where it can actually become something that is something you look forward to, something you want to share, something that you love. There's a quote that I love, and it sticks with me, and it's anything that you place in front of your recovery, you will lose. And I'm here to show you that is absolutely true. It's not always great. It's not always great, and it's not going to be great for a while. And depending on the day, it still doesn't feel like it's great. Trust me. But I'm going to give a quick Cliff Notes rundown of myself. I'm a 29-year-old man. I'm from Central New York, Syracuse area, Oswego, New York specifically. And I started dabbling in illicit substances at a really young age. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day about how did you find out you were an alcoholic? So let's start there. I knew that I was going to have a problem with alcohol the first time it touched my lips. And that's where the fun begins. I think back, and it's funny to me. Thinking back, I can honestly picture myself drinking my first drink, which was a shot of Citron Grey Goose vodka. I was about 12, 13 years old, and I slung that shot of vodka back, and immediately it felt like if you've ever seen John Carpenter's They Live, where they have the glasses where you can see reality, that's how I felt as a child drinking vodka for the first time. And then it just shot off from there. I can honestly say I don't know if there's a substance that I didn't try. There's certainly substances that I loved. I would say mainly opiates and alcohol. I spent most, if not all of my teenage years trying to keep that feeling going, trying to keep those magic glasses on, rose tinted glasses, that you hear that a lot. And it was something that for me was like, oh, I feel like an adult already as well. It was a double thing. You feel cool because you're doing something that adults do when you're young, and you also feel great because even before I knew what drugs or alcohol could do to me, my brain knew that it loved it. There was something inside of me that knew that it loved the feeling of being intoxicated, of being inebriated, of losing control. There was a liberating feeling of, well, I might hate myself now. I might cut myself now. I was a very sad child. And substances were the only thing that worked for a long time. And I consider myself very lucky to have been able to be as sober as I am now. I'm at 1,085 days today without an alcoholic beverage. And I didn't do my research. I don't have the days for opiates, but I quit opiates in June of 2016. So been a little over 9 years. My last drink was September 25th, 2022. And I finally quit. I relapsed 11 times in 2022. And so for this little section here, we're going to talk about relapsing, slipping, stumbling, stutter stepping, however you want to call it. It isn't something to be taken lightly, but it also isn't something that means you're a failure. There's another delicate fine line. Now, relapsing is not fun. I'd say recovery, sobriety is fun. Relapsing is not fun. It is the single most terrifying thing, in my opinion, that can happen during your recovery. And if you find yourself in a position where you're struggling to quit, you keep relapsing, you can't put down the bottle, you can't put down the pipe, don't be discouraged. Don't worry about if other people are thinking you're a loser. Don't worry about if other people think you can't get sober. Because as soon as you start listening to those people, you already lost. I'm sorry. This is the way it is. You already lost. If you relapse, if I relapse that 10th time, that 11th time, and I bought into what everybody else said, I wouldn't be talking right now. So as far as relapsing and slipping comes into play, just start over like you never fucked up. Don't forget that you fucked up, but start over just like it's day one again. Pretend that you've never tried to get sober before because you haven't been sober. You relapsed again. So try again and try again and try again. If you have months, if you have years of clean time and you slip up, own up to it. Accept it. Accept that your method wasn't perfect and gather your thoughts and try again. For me, what worked, my last drink on September 25th, 2022, I remember that day vividly. I was planning on having people over to my house, and I was going to cook a bunch of food for us. We were going to watch football. And I had $80 left. Before I went to pick up the food and stuff for football, I went to the liquor store. And there was a specific bottle of scotch that I had been waiting for this liquor store to get for a while that they finally got in. It was a bottle of Johnny Walker Extra Black. And I think it was about $66 or so. It was basically the whole money I had. So it was like, all right, well, I've been waiting for this bottle of scotch. And I ended up seeing that bottle. I texted my friends, hey, I'm sorry. Nobody's coming over today. I'm just going to stay home. And I bought that bottle of scotch. And then I went to 7-Eleven and I bought a bunch of taquitos and Hot Pockets and went home. And I drank that entire bottle of scotch before halftime of the football game I was watching. I think I was taking a shot every play, maybe every other play, and was just distraught that for the first time in a long time, and Seth, you can attest to this, I don't have people in my house, even now, still. Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm just kind of idling up here.
Yeah, you're good. But it was upsetting for me because I was finally going to get over this hurdle. That's a hurdle I still have to climb. I hate having people in my house. Half the time it's because my house is destroyed, and the other half the time is because there's spiritual disturbance when people are in my home. And it's nothing against them. It's just something I just don't feel safe when people are in my house for extended periods of time. It's weird. I know. I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be either. If there's anything that I know that I'm good at, it's not drinking and doing drugs, and that's why I'm here today. But I just remember finishing that bottle of scotch before halftime, and I stood up to go to the bathroom, and I felt nothing. It literally felt like I didn't have any booze in my system at all. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, there's a problem here. Because now I canceled on my friends. I haven't hung out with them probably since then. That was like their last not last gasp, but like that was you closing the book on that. I was very unreliable. I was very angry. I can still be angry. I was very lost. And I was fucking petrified. How did it get this way? So from that day, I stopped. And I'm glad I stopped when I did. I'm not going to get into the God stuff right now, but it's coming. So I apologize in advance if you're not a fan of any God spirituality stuff. But thank God I quit the day that I did, because let me tell you, if there was any opportunity for me to relapse again, I was right in the thick of it. It was right in the beginning of football season, and right after the 25th, it would have been Halloween. Then you got Thanksgiving, then you got Christmas, then you got New Year's, and then scattered all in between that is a bunch of birthdays on my family, both my parents' birthdays and a bunch of other relatives where there's going to be alcohol aplenty. I come from a big drinking family, and I was the blue chip prospect. And I retired early. I pulled a Chris Borland. And I'm telling you that, I'm saying that to say this. Those first few months of sobriety were great, but they were awful, because that's when I realized how evil addiction can really be. In those few months after I quit, I would say the first 4 or 5 months, I lost my mind. And when I say I lost my mind, I mean I don't even really remember that time, if I'm being completely honest. The mood swings, the chemical imbalance in your brain that happens when you quit any substance. I was having rapid mood swings, emotional blackouts. I worked at a bank at the time, and I got so stressed out and so overloaded that I actually screamed at a manager of mine, and that's something I have to live with. I yelled at a woman that had been nothing but great to me, nothing but nice to me, defended me, respected me, and I threw that away, and I threw that entire career away because I thought I was smarter than my addiction. I thought I was smarter than the demons inside of me. And I'm telling you, you're not. There's, whether you want to say addiction is a disease, whether you want to say it's a evil spirit, it's a demon, it's a darkness, it's a void, it's a parasite. Addiction is an eldritch being that wants nothing more than to take away everything that you love. And I mean everything. People ask me what it takes to get to the point where I am now, which, if you look at it on a scale, on an outside view, you take the addiction part out of it. Where I was at peak addiction, my own office, white collar job, solid benefits. That's where you would want to be. But in order to get that, I had to have this demon around me. And it's funny because the main reason I got sober, other than the fact that I didn't want to die, was the fact that I loved this job so much that I could not risk any more incidents. However, I didn't know that was the one incident I was going to get. And that's a lesson that I had to learn. And that's a burden I have to bear for the rest of my life. I betrayed a lot of people that loved me and respected me as a colleague and a friend, and tried to hide behind my addiction instead of accepting the fact that my addiction was winning. It didn't matter that I had 3 months of clean time. It didn't matter I had 4 months of clean time. I was still losing. And on March 15th, 2023, I made the decision, with the help of my manager at the time. I don't know if I should say names. You know who you are. Ironically enough, her initials are AA. So, but I remember speaking with her, and she asked me, "Why do you drink as much as you do?" And I told her, because every time I was drinking, I was hoping it was the last time that I was alive. The last 2 to 3 years of my addiction, I was genuinely trying to drink myself to death. But something kept me here. The same darkness that consumed me and took away everything that I love, there was a light that didn't let me lose that battle. And it's still there. And I have to foster that. So on March 20th, 2025, I left. I went down to the Philadelphia area, Plymouth meeting. If you listen to Clear Shots, you probably hear me reference Philadelphia. It's not just because of that Tom Hanks movie everybody loves, that knee slapper. I lived down in Philadelphia in a sober living house. The company was Sobriety Solutions. I'm not even sure if they're still around. If they are still around, God bless them. But I was blessed. I was great. And I'm eternally grateful, and I was so lucky for me to get sober at the most difficult time of year and stay sober. And then to make the phone call to go to treatment when I did, and just so happened to get placed with the people that I got placed with. You guys were phenomenal, the most amazing people I've ever met. And my friends there. I mean, I walked in and I was home, man. I'm so lucky. There's an episode, we just did a Clear Shots episode, so if you haven't seen it, it's fine, but Seth will know. We were talking about, the greatest sports teams ever. We were talking about the 96 Bulls and the 2001 Miami Hurricanes and just all of George St. Pierre's UFC career. The village that I was blessed with at the recovery center would be the 96 Bulls of a recovery team. It was a brotherhood. It was a team. It was a family of people that didn't give up on each other. And I'm blessed enough to have made it on the other side. And it's it was scary. had to surrender everything I knew about sobriety and drugs and addiction and myself and kind of start from square one. We started with Alcoholics Anonymous, and I still carry my chip with me. God blessed me with this one. I knew from then on, as soon as I got this chip in my hand and he told me, "Welcome to AA," I knew I was home. And I guess that's what I'm trying to foster here over the airwaves, over the internet, over the cloud. I want to get to a point where it feels like a meeting that I would want to attend. But yeah, we stayed out in Philly for about 4 months. And since then, it's honestly been a blur. I'm really, really lucky to have the support system that I have. I understand not everybody has the opportunity to abandon their life and travel 7 hours down the country and do what I did. But I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to do exactly what I did. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not even here to tell you what not to do. I'm here to tell you what worked for me and what continues to work for me. And I want to try and turn this into a place where I can have other people come in. I have friends. I already have a guest list of friends that are in recovery and educate for recovery. And I guess we're just here to foster a nice, safe environment where there's no judgment and there's no anger. I'm probably going to get animated, but I promise you I won't be angry. And I guess since I've been home now a little over 2 years, which, Seth, that's really fucking wild to me that I've been home for like 2.5 years now. I don't know if that's wild to you. Because I still feel like I just came home the other day.
To me, yeah, that feels about right. Honestly, we've been friends for a long time. It feels like you were never away. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing too is, like, for a lot of other people, I mean, really, you're one of the only people that I see consistently when we do the show. Other than that, I'm at work. So I guess a lot of people didn't really miss me too much because I would have just been working probably anyway. But it also, yeah, it didn't, when I first came home, it didn't even feel like I was gone, man. And that was a good thing and a bad thing. I've had to relearn a lot of things. One of the things people didn't, they told me to stay in Philly. And if you see me on social media, I definitely, when I get emotional and upset, I definitely go, I wish I stayed in Philly. But I am so happy I came home because I think I had to prove to myself that I could live here and still not drink and still not use opiates and stop going out with strangers and sleeping around and waking up in people's houses and waking up in the woods. Somehow never got arrested. I don't know how. I mean, that could be white privilege. Honestly, I couldn't tell you how I didn't get arrested. I was never, and you get people like, you'll never hear me say I was a functioning alcoholic. I said that one time. In a meeting, and I got an earful from this gentleman. There's no such thing as a functioning alcoholic. You're an alcoholic. Like, and he just kept saying that. And I was trying to argue with it. Well, no, I did this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And he's right. It didn't matter that I had the fancy office. It didn't matter that I had the girlfriend. It didn't matter that I had the nice apartment. It didn't matter that I had the money in the bank. Not the pay-per-view, obviously, but like money in my bank. Didn't matter the suits I wore. Didn't matter that I knew how to tie a tie. I was an alcoholic. And I had to fix that. I had to stop being that. And here's the kicker. My grandfather, God rest his soul, Francis Carson, was a drinker. And he told me, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And that stuck with me. And I think he knew. And I wish I could talk to him. I feel like he knew the path that I was going down. And I know that he struggled too. And I wish if I could talk to anybody right now, it would be Pops. Because that's an inspiration that I have. My Uncle Sonny, my great Uncle Sonny, was another one big drinker. And he was an inspiration too, because he was the guy that I wanted to be. The guy everybody had stories about, the guy that everybody wanted to see, the guy everybody loved. And I had no idea that you could still be that guy sober. I still struggle with that. I still struggle with am I still fun to be around? And I don't know why, because it's not up to me to decide if I'm fun to be around. It's up to the people that are around me to decide if I'm fun to be around. And that's what I'm talking about, that darkness. The darkness that got me to drink when I was around people is telling me now that I'm not drinking, I'm not fun. You know what does make you fun? A couple beers, a couple shooters, a line or two. But that's not true. And I think that's more of a social thing. I think that's a thing that's learned. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think there's any. I'd be hard pressed to find an actual study done on whether people are more fun when they're drinking or not. But
well, we talked about this before, but like I think it gives you a good indication of like who actually was your friend and who wasn't, you know, and like who was your friend for what reason.
Correct. Because that's the thing that I struggle with too. Still is I like, and it's a reverse thing too. You can be like, well, they only like me because I was drinking, but then it works the reverse way, where I only liked them because I was drinking, and it's a weird crossroads. And he's gonna be on the show, but I'll be honest, Jesse was one of my friends that I was petrified of losing, because I thought that Jesse only loved me because we would get drunk and party together all the time. And it wasn't until after the fact, you know. And how dare I think that, by the way? How dare I think that about some of these people that I love?
Jesse's not like that.
No.
He's never been that way.
And that's the demon inside me. That's the evil inside of me that's trying to turn me against this guy that's helped me move in and out of every house I've ever lived in. This guy that my parents even know. And I've said this before, not a lot of people meet my parents. And we shaved, you guys shaved his head once. But like, and that's the darkness I'm talking about. That's the demon I'm talking about. The evil inside of me that tries to convince me that one of my greatest friends is just a drinking buddy. And that's a thing they don't tell you. These are things that you think you know, but you don't until it happens. You really, really don't. You really, really don't. I thought that I only liked doing clear shots when I was drunk until you reminded me that we stopped drinking on the show before I even quit drinking.
Yeah.
And that was crazy to me, because especially the bedroom era. It was, I'll never forget, God bless him, when we had Terrence on, and Terrence and I tore through, like, a 12-pack of lime-aritas, coconut-flavored lime-aritas before the show.
Yeah, it's all on YouTube. You can watch it.
And people are like, well, do you want to take that down? Don't you want to? No, I don't want to take that down. I want there to be evidence of that evil. That isn't me. That wasn't me. And at the time, I wished it was. But it never was. I thought I was this, like, miracle man, like this ray of positivity, this super fun guy. I thought that was just the alcohol, man. I thought that was just the oxys. I thought girls only liked me because I drank and did drugs and always had drugs. And maybe some of them did, but not all of them. And yeah, even still, I work now. The restaurant I work at now is also the bar I used to frequent. And once every few weekends, it'll be an old crew of mine there. And every time I see them, I get anxious and I go, man, they're not going to talk to me. They're not going to look at me. I still do that. I did this recently. I had to talk myself up recently. So even though I have this platform and I'm doing this show and I'm telling all these stories, I'm still not perfect. I want to make that abundantly clear. I'm still struggling, but it's good. And it's fun because now I get to reflect and be like, wasn't that stupid? That was so stupid of me. One of the people I was scared to see is one of the people that she's the reason I'm here. Why would she be scared to see me? Why would she be upset to see me? Why do I think that? Because there's still that darkness there. It's never going to go away. It's never going to go away. I'm telling you now. My dad quit smoking before I was born. It's been over 30 years since he quit smoking cigarettes. He still wants a cigarette every day. And I remember him telling me that when I was a kid. He still wants a cigarette every day. And every morning, I could go for a drink. Every morning, I could go for an oxy. But I don't. But I'm blessed to be able to make that decision every day and not have it forced upon me. The fact that it's even a question. My sponsor told me, he goes, when you were drinking, how did you know if you had a good day or a bad day? And I was like, well, that's a good question. I go, when I was deep into the bottle, every day was a bad day. And, now no matter what happens to me now, I know that if I can go to bed at night and there wasn't alcohol in me, there wasn't pills in me, there's no cocaine, there's no Robitussin, Benadryl or Ambien or Xanax or LSD or psilocybin mushrooms or Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds, I know I'm good. So I finally get to have good days now. I allow myself to have good days. You are the arbiter of your own freedom. You hold the key to the cage you're locked in. And the name of this show is called Out of the Woods. My favorite line, and I would say it every meeting, and I got eye rolls every time, and I'm going to get eye rolls now. If you're lost in the woods for 10 years, it's going to take you 10 years to get out. And I'm here to help you get out of the woods. We're going to get out of the woods together, by the way. This isn't, I'm not going to bounce and leave you. We're in this together. We're in recovery together. We can do this. It's going to be hard, but we're going to try and make it fun. We're going to try and look back and be like, Jesus, what were we thinking? What were we thinking? How crazy is that? How crazy is it that I used to steal shooters from everybody's house. If I was in your house and you had alcohol there, I'm sorry. I stole from you. I never stole jewelry. I never stole cash. But I took booze. I took booze with me everywhere. I wasn't going to go somewhere unless I knew I was going to get booze there and have some after. And how dare I? How dare I think that that's okay? But now I can look back and realize, well, I don't do that anymore. And I'm aware that I was doing that. And I was aware back then, but I didn't care. That demon took over. That darkness. The disease. However you want, it's not a tangible thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. I was talking to a couple of our friends yesterday that the spiritual part of it for me, granted I do go to church now, I would consider myself a born again Christian, but even if you take Christianity and Jesus and all that out of it, there's still something evil, there's something sinister inside of me. And it wants to kill me. And it wants to kill you too. And you can't let it do that. And you have everything you need right now. I had a couple of family members that commented suggestions for the show that I have to track down again. Because I wrote the suggestions down, but I don't know who to credit them to yet. So, for suggestion number 1, my cousin Kendall wanted me to elaborate on what to say and do, what not to do, and what is most comforting to those during those tough moments. And this is the part where and I'm not going to say any river don't have a bend, but this is the part where I zag. A lot of people zig here. I zag. I don't think you should say anything. I think you should listen. And not this, I'm not saying don't reach out. I'm not saying don't check in. But approach it with soft language. You know? I would also recommend to be persistent and I want to say acceptable, but there's a word like easy, agreeable. There's a word I'm thinking of that I can't get, but for me, what helped the most was not assuming that my recovery was the cause of whatever was bothering me that day. I think that's still a thing I struggle with, where if I have a bad day, that doesn't mean I'm going to drink. That doesn't mean I'm going to do Oxycontin or oxycodone. It doesn't mean I'm going to go out and get lost somewhere. And I think that was the dangerous thing for me, was when people would assume, oh, he's having a bad day, he must be drinking again, or he must really want. Ask. I would say, I said all that to say this: just ask. And then also accept that they probably don't want to talk about it. I'm a special case. I've always been a special case. They can never figure out. They had to invent a new spectrum for me, I think. Time Warner. I'm extremely transparent. I've been extremely transparent about my recovery from the beginning. And I understand that not everybody has that ability. I think some people would call me shameless, which I think is accurate. There's no room to be ashamed of what I did. I can't be proud of it, obviously, but the idea of hiding my mistakes, hiding your mistakes, hiding your addiction. That's how it grows. That's how the darkness grows. You got to bring it to light, man. It's so cliche, but you bring that darkness to light and it shrinks. The more I talked about my recovery, the more I talked about how awful it was, how much it sucked, the more that I could get eyes on the day-to-day, how I was struggling. That's what helped me. And so I think the biggest thing is to understand that not everybody's going to be as open. Not everybody's going to be as transparent. I'm hoping to help fix that. I'm hoping to help show people that you can be completely open and honest and unashamed and just own up to it. Have accountability. There are things that I've said and done that I will never be able to fix. Never be able to fix. And it eats away at me daily. But I've accepted that. And some people go, never say never. I can say never with a couple of these because they're gone. The people are gone. The people I hurt are gone. And there's nothing I can do other than admit to it. Admit that I was an angry, thieving, emotional, conniving, almost like a masochist, a suicidal nihilist that only cared about getting drunk and didn't care about anybody else. So I would listen. That's my biggest advice. Listen to what they have to say. If they're willing to speak at all, then just listen and let them go. Let them ramble. And then just don't leave. I think that's the biggest one is don't be the kind of person that lends an ear and helps and then disappears. There's a epidemic, and this isn't even a recovery thing, and I'm definitely guilty of this. There's an epidemic of people going, you can reach out to me whenever. You can call me whenever. You can text me whenever. I would say, don't say that unless you genuinely mean it.
Yeah, people think that's just like a nice thing to say, a pleasantry.
Yeah, and it's something I took seriously, and it's something that I scared a lot of people because they said, call me whenever. And so I would. And they weren't prepared. So I would say, if you're going to tell somebody, call me whenever, be prepared. They're going to call you whenever. So yeah, I would say, to break it down for you, what to do when somebody's struggling, just listen to them and don't leave their side. Because I don't know about anybody else, but for me personally, when people walk away, I don't try to get them to come back. I don't. I still don't. I probably should. I should probably work on that, not having the resentment, because it's not fair. My recovery is not your responsibility until you make me think that way, whether it's intentional or not. And not you specifically, but you, the people listening. And then next up, we've got coping strategies that work and don't work from my cousin Carissa. The stigma surrounding recovery. We brushed upon this a little earlier. I was a little animated talking about safe injection sites with Seth earlier. Which is a big proponent of like harm reduction recovery. And I think, reflecting now, I think the reason I get so animated and agitated by it is because for me, I can't imagine a world I can't not imagine a world. I can't imagine a path to recovery for me personally that involves harm reduction, that involves safe injection sites. It would be like, am I ignorant to how they work? Probably. I probably am. I've never been in one. I've never been admitted to one. And I don't think we have any out here around that I know of off the top of my head. But for me, strategies that work. I mean, I like having my chip on me. I always have a chip on me. Whether it's my 24-hour, I always keep on me either my 24-hour, my 18-month, or my 2-year. Those are my 3 most important chips. That helps for me. A very dear friend of mine that helped me out when I first came home, Karen, I love you. You're a wonderful woman, and I appreciate you. She gave me a Bible called the Help Finder Bible, where in the first, I don't know, couple hundred pages, you look up stuff that's bothering you. It could be anger, death, losing a job, house fire, whatever it is, and it will lead you to a passage or a book in the Bible that kind of gives you something to reflect on. That's what works for me. I like to go for walks. I mean, I walk everywhere to begin with anyway, but I like going for walks, being outside, being by the water. There's actual scientific benefits, I think, to being near open bodies of water. There's just something that happens. You feel peaceful. You feel like you're part of the earth again instead of being stuck in your house or stuck in a cubicle or on a construction site or whatever you do. Take yourself out of your comfort zone. I'm super comfy, bundled up at home with, a cool blue Gatorade and Mass Effect 2, and I'm listening to Opie and Anthony. But if I'm not feeling good that day, I probably shouldn't be doing something like that. I should work on what is bothering me. Because if I don't work on what's bothering me and I try to relax, then I'm not going to relax. I'm just going to keep thinking about what's bothering me. So I think removing myself from situations, removing myself from environments, placing myself into situations that are uncomfortable, that will force me to resolve the thing bothering me. That's definitely what's helped me the most. Things that don't work, man, it's tough because I could tell you now, even though I love Alcoholics Anonymous and I wouldn't be here where I am without them, I don't really like going to meetings as much anymore. I have a weird disconnect now, and I have to figure out what that is. Whether I do them in person or over Zoom, there's just it doesn't feel conducive to my recovery. And I really don't know why. I know there's examples. I've definitely told the story about, Seth, you've heard this story 100 times about the guy with Classic Weekend. And for those that aren't in this area, we have a racetrack in our hometown. And the last weekend of every summer is called Classic Weekend. And it's like the Super Bowl, the Daytona 500 for our little town here. And the last meeting I went to, we were just talking in circles with this guy, and it just didn't. I didn't leave. I left that meeting feeling worse about my own recovery, and just pretty much haven't been back. And that's not fair to him, and that's not fair to the organization. So that's something I got to work on. I should go back just to try again. Never say never, It's not fair. What didn't work? I would say especially it might be hypocritical of me to say for somebody that still consumes cannabis. You go, well, you can't say you're sober then. Sure. Cali sober. Hate that word. I will definitely say when I came home, I stayed away from cannabis for a while. It was about 90 days because I got put on a bunch of medication. I'm not on any of that medication anymore, but I got put on a bunch of medication and wanted to stay off of marijuana. And I think it was a little over 90 days. And I'll be honest, I dove right back in head first into smoking pot and doing dabs and doing gummies all the time until I realized I hit that same point in just a few weeks where I was like, well, what the fuck? I'm just treating this like booze. And it's one of those things where for me, cannabis helps. But for me, I also can't use cannabis the same way that I use the other two. I don't use it as an escape. But to be honest, I don't know why I do it at all. So why even do it? I don't know. I like the way it makes me feel. I like the way coffee makes me feel. I love these frickin' Zyn things and my nicotine vapes. But I know that for whatever reason, that darkness that is trying to take everything away from me, it's not around when I consume cannabis or nicotine or caffeine, or even when I work out. I do get addicted to work, though. Workaholic, big time. So I'll tell you, the other thing that doesn't work that I don't recommend is replacing your addiction with your occupation. Because then you'll grow to resent your job. You'll grow to resent what you do for a living, which that is hell on earth. I don't know. There's lots of people that say they hate their jobs, and I feel for you because I couldn't imagine hating what I did for a living. And then on top of that, fueling your addiction demon, your darkness with something that you hate might be just as destructive as the substance you were addicted to, in my opinion. I worked myself sick, genuinely worked myself sick when I first got home. I put myself in the hospital twice from stress because I was picking up too many hours, and I can say that's definitely not something I'd recommend. What you'll find when you start your path to recovery, when you start to get sober, when you start to figure your way, when you start to get out of the woods, you'll start to rediscover things about yourself. I started playing guitar again. I started writing poetry again. I started reading again. I started watching movies again. I started watching new shows that I missed. So when I was drunk, I would just watch the same stuff over and over and over again. Or just nothing. Just trash. You know? A new hobby. I like lately I've been going for walks, and I like to take photos at night. I like to take photos of our town at night. That's fun. Yeah, silly things. Yeah, and that's all I had for the suggestions. Those are the main ones. I would say that's all I got to say about that. What are we at? About an hour?
55 minutes.
Cool. Man, I wonder how long it'll take me to read this. I had a story from the Big Book of AA that is one of my favorite stories. And it's the one that kind of got me to understand what I was doing. Now it's funny because the story is written by a woman. It's about her experiences, and I think it's a woman from like the 1980s or 70s. And it's really funny because as a man in his 20s in the 2020s, this was the thing I related to the most, more than anything. But I'm thinking here, Seth, I'll have you look this up on your end. If you just go to Google and you type in "crossing the river of denial," and that top one there. And if any of my AA or sobriety solutions friends are listening, thank you. And I love you and I hope you're doing well. But if you're listening, you've definitely heard this story at least once or twice or maybe 7 or 8 times before. But yes, we're gonna get right into this. I have it pulled up on my screen here, but if you want to full screen the body and get this part out, and F11, yeah, and then maybe zoom in to like 350. That's where I'm at. Maybe no, right there, perfect. It's gonna be like a karaoke, like a watch along. And then I'm thinking too, this is how this is how I'll end every episode, with a reading, and then we can make the reading a short, not a short. It's gonna be long,
yeah, clip
but like a clip.
Sort.
Yeah,
right.
clip the reading. Because this is what it's all about. This is from the Big Book of AA. Crossing the river of denial. She finally realized that when she enjoyed her drinking, she couldn't control it, and when she controlled it, she couldn't enjoy it. Denial is the most cunning, baffling, and powerful part of my disease, the disease of alcoholism. When I look back now, it's hard to imagine that I didn't see a problem with my drinking. But instead of seeing the truth when all of the yets, as in that hasn't happened to me yet, started happening, I just kept lowering my standards. Dad was an alcoholic, and my mother drank throughout her pregnancy, but I don't blame my parents for my alcoholism. Kids with a lot worse upbringings than mine did not turn out alcoholic, while some that had it a lot better did. In fact, I stopped wondering why me a long time ago. It's like a man standing on a bridge in the middle of a river with his pants on fire, wondering why his pants are on fire. It doesn't matter. Just jump in. And that is exactly what I did with AA once I finally crossed the river of denial. I grew up feeling as if I was the only thing keeping my family together. This, compounded by the fear of not being good enough, was a lot of pressure for a little girl. Everything changed with my first drink at the age of 16. All the fear, shyness, and disease evaporated with that first burning swallow of bourbon, straight from the bottle during a liquor cabinet raid at a slumber party. I got drunk, blacked out, threw up, had dry heaves, was sick to death the next day, and I knew I would do it again. For the first time, I felt part of a group without having to be perfect to get approval. I went through college on scholarships, work-study programs, and student loans. Classes and work kept me too busy to do too much drinking. Plus, I was engaged to a boy who was not alcoholic. However, I broke off our relationship during my senior year after discovering drugs, sex, and rock and roll, companions to my best friend, alcohol. I proceeded to explore all that the late 60s and early 70s offered. That's sidebar, crazy. This is even further back than I thought, and I genuinely feel like this could be something written about me. There's a part I want to touch on quick. I grew up feeling as if I was the only thing keeping my family together. That is not an uncommon sentiment. I felt that way. Sometimes I still feel that way. What were you going to say? I'm sorry. I saw you unmuted there.
No, you're all good.
Okay, word. I proceeded to explore all that the late 60s and early 70s offered. After backpacking around Europe, I decided to settle in a large city. Well, I made it all right to full-blown alcoholism. A big city is a great place to be an alcoholic. Nobody notices. 3 martini lunches, drinks after work, and a nightcap at the corner bar was just a normal day. And didn't everyone have blackouts? I used to joke about how great blackouts were because you save so much time in transit. 1 minute you're here, the next minute you're there. In retrospect, making jokes and just laughing it off helped solidify my unfaltering denial. Another trick was selecting companions who drank just a little bit more than I did, and then I could always point to their problem instead. One such companion led to my first arrest. If the driver of the car had only pulled over when the police lights flashed, we would have been fine. If when I had practically talked our way out of it, the driver had kept his mouth shut, we would have been fine. But no, he started babbling about how he was in rehab. I got off with a misdemeanor, and for years, I completely discounted that arrest because it was all his fault. I simply ignored that I had also been drinking all day. One morning when I was at work, a hospital called, telling me to get there quickly. My father was there, dying of alcoholism. He was 60. I had seen him in hospitals before, but this time was different. With his stomach sorely distended, swollen with fluids, his non-functioning kidneys and liver could no longer process. He lingered for 3 weeks. Alcoholic death is very painful and slow. Seeing him die of alcoholism convinced me I could never become an alcoholic. I knew too much about the disease, had too much self-knowledge to ever fall prey. I shipped his body back home without attending the funeral. I could not even help my grandmother bury her only son, because by then I was inextricably involved in an affair mired in sex and alcohol. Plummeting into the pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization that relationship became, I had my first drunk driving arrest. It terrified me. I could have killed someone. Driving in a total blackout, I came to, handing my driver's license to the patrolman. I swore it would never happen again. 3 months later, it happened again. What I didn't know then was that when I put alcohol in my body, I am powerless over how much and with whom I drink. All good intentions drowned in denial. I remember joking about how most people spent their entire lives without ever seeing the inside of a jail, and here, a woman of my stature had been arrested 3 times. But I would think I've never really done hard time, never actually spent the night in jail. Then I met Mr. Wrong, my husband-to-be, and all of that changed. I spent my wedding night in jail. Like every other time, however, it wasn't my fault. There we were, still in our wedding clothes. If he had just kept his mouth shut after the police arrived, we would have been fine. I had them convinced that he had attacked the valet because our wedding money was missing. Actually, he thought the valet had stolen the marijuana we were going to smoke. In reality, I was so drunk that I lost it. During the interrogation of the valet in the restaurant parking lot, my husband became so violent the officer put him in the back of the patrol car. When he tried to kick out the rear windows, the policeman retaliated. I pleaded with the officer as a second policeman arrived, and both bride and groom were taken to jail. It was then that the stolen marijuana cigarettes were discovered, to my horror, in central booking as they cataloged my belongings. I was arrested for 3 felonies, including drunk and disorderly, and 2 misdemeanors. It was all my husband's fault. I had practically nothing to do with it. He had a drinking problem. I stayed in that abusive marriage for nearly 7 years and continued to focus on his problem. Toward the end of the marriage and my misguided attempts to set a good example for him, plus he was drinking too much of my vodka, I mandated no booze in the house. Still, why should I be denied a cocktail after returning home from a stressful day at the office just because he had a problem? So, I began hiding my vodka in the bedroom and still did not see anything wrong with this behavior. He was my problem. I accepted a transfer with a promotion, Yes, my professional life was still climbing. Shortly after the divorce, now I was sure my problems were over, except that I brought me with me. Once alone in a new place, my drinking really took off. I did not have to be a good example anymore. For the first time, I realized that perhaps my drinking was getting a bit out of hand, but I knew you'd drink too if you had my stress: recent divorce, new home, new job, didn't know anybody, and an unacknowledged progressive disease that was destroying me. Finally, I made some friends who drank just as I did. Our drinking was disguised as fishing trips and chili cook-offs, but they were really excuses for week-long binges. After a day's drinking disguised as softball, I nicked an old woman's fender driving home. Of course, it was not my fault. She pulled out in front of me. That the accident occurred at dusk and I had been drinking since 10 a.m. had nothing to do with it. My alcoholism had taken me to such depths of denial and heights of arrogance that I waited for the police so they would know it was her fault too. Well, it didn't take them long to figure it out. Once again, pulled from the car, hands cuffed behind my back, I was taken to jail. But it wasn't my fault. The old broad shouldn't have even been allowed on the road. I told myself. She was the problem. The judge sentenced me to 6 months in Alcoholics Anonymous, and boy, was I outraged. By now, I had been arrested 5 times, but all I could see was a hard partier, not an alcoholic. Didn't you people know the difference? So I started going to these stupid meetings and identified myself as an alcoholic so you'd sign my court card, even though I possibly couldn't be an alcoholic. I had a 6-figure income. I owned my own home. I had a car phone. I used ice cubes. For God's sakes, everyone knows an alcoholic, at least one that had to go to AA. Everyone knows an alcoholic is a Skid Row bum in a dirty raincoat drinking from a paper bag. So each time you read that part in chapter 5 of the big book that says, if you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, my ears closed. You had the disease of alcoholism, and the last thing I wanted was to be an alcoholic. Eventually, you talked about my feelings in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous until I could no longer close my ears. I heard women, beautiful, successful women in recovery, talk about the things that they had done while drinking, and I would think, I did that, or I did worse than that. Then I began to see the miracles that happen only in AA. People who would nearly crawl on the doors, sick and broken, who in a few weeks of meetings and not drinking one day at a time would get their health back, find a little job and friends who really cared, and then discover a God in their lives. But the most compelling part of AA, the part that made me want to try this sober thing, was the laughter. The pure joy of the laughter that I only heard from sober alcoholics. Still, the thought of getting sober terrified me. I hated the woman I had become. A compulsive, obsessive, daily drinker, not dressing on weekends, always afraid of running out of alcohol. I'd start thinking about a drink by noon and would leave the office earlier and earlier, or promising myself that I wouldn't drink that night. I'd invariably find myself in front of the refrigerator with a drink in my hand, vowing, tomorrow, I won't drink tomorrow. I despised all of it, but at least it was familiar. I had no idea what sobriety felt like, and I could not imagine life without alcohol. I had reached that terrifying jumping off point where I couldn't drink anymore, but I couldn't not drink. For almost 23 years, I had done something nearly every day of my life to change reality to one degree or another, yet I had to try this sober thing. To this day, I'm amazed at people who get sober before the holidays. I couldn't even attempt it until after the Super Bowl. One last blowout party when I swore I wouldn't get drunk. When I put alcohol in my body, I'd lose the ability to choose how much I drank, and Super Bowl Sunday that year was no different. I ended up on someone's couch instead of my own bed and was sick to death all the next day at work. That week I had to go to a hockey game. It was a work event, so I tried to really watch my drinking, consuming only 2 large cups of beer, which for me wasn't even enough to catch a buzz. And that was the beginning of my spiritual awakening. Sitting near the ice, frustrated, and pondering the fact that 2 tall beers didn't give me any relief. Something in my head, and I know it wasn't me, said, so why bother? At that moment, I knew what the big book meant about the great obsession of every abnormal drinker being to somehow, someday, control and enjoy his drinking. Sorry, I want to redo that one. At that moment, I knew what the big book meant about the great obsession of every abnormal drinker being to somehow, someday, control and enjoy his drinking. On Super Bowl Sunday, when I enjoyed it, I couldn't control it. And at the hockey game, when I controlled it, I couldn't enjoy it. There was no more denying that I was an alcoholic. What an epiphany. I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous the next night, knowing I wanted what you had. I sat in that cold metal chair just as I had for the past 5 months and read step 1 on the wall for the 100th time. But this time I asked with all my heart for God to help me, and a strange thing happened. A physical sensation came over me like a wave of pure energy, and I felt the presence of God in that dingy little room. I went home that night for the first time in years. I did not have to open the cupboard with the half-gallon jug of vodka in it, not that night or any night since. God had restored me to sanity, and I took step 2 the very moment I surrendered and accepted my powerlessness over alcohol and the unmanageability of my life. I attended at least one meeting every day, emptied ashtrays, washed coffee pots, and on the day I took a 30-day chip, a friend took me to an AA get-together. I was in absolute awe of the power of 2,000 plus sober alcoholics holding hands, saying the final prayer together, and I wanted to stay sober more than I wanted life itself. Returning home, I begged God on my knees to help me stay sober one more day. I told God to take the house, take the job, take everything if that's what was needed for me to stay sober. That day I learned 2 things. The real meaning of step 3 and to always be careful what I prayed for. After 5 months of sobriety, I lost that 6-figure job with the firm. The wreckage of my past had caught up with me, and I was out of work for a year. That job would have been lost whether I was drunk or sober, but thank goodness I was sober, or I probably would have killed myself. When I was drinking, the prestige of my job was my self-worth, the only thing that made me worth loving. Now I was starting to love myself because AAs had unconditionally loved me until I... Whoa, hang on, what the... Now I was starting to love myself because anonymous alcoholics had unconditionally loved me until I could. That's a weird one. As a sidebar, I've never heard to members of AA be referred to as AAs, unless she means AAs, like plural meetings. How would you read that? I know it's a total, we're losing momentum, but that's how I was starting to love myself because AAs had unconditionally loved me until I could.
I was kind of reading it as the meetings themselves.
Okay. Gotcha. Oh yeah, it would be AAs groups. Okay. At 5 months, I realized that the world might never build a shrine to the fact that I was sober. I understood that it was not the world's job to understand my disease. Rather, it was my job to work my program and not drink no matter what. At 9 months of sobriety, I lost the big house that I bought just to prove to you I couldn't possibly be an alcoholic. In between 5 and 9 months, my house was robbed. I had a biopsy on my cervix, and I had my heart broken. And the miracle of all miracles was that I didn't have to drink over any of it. This from a woman who had to drink over all of it. I was so unique and so arrogant when I got here. I think God knew that he had to show me early on that there was nothing a drink would make better. He showed me that his love and the power of the steps and the fellowship could keep me from picking up a drink one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time, no matter what. A drink would not bring back the job, the house, or the man, so why bother? I found everything I had ever looked for in Alcoholics Anonymous. I used to thank God for putting AA in my life. Now I thank AA for putting God in my life. I found my tribe, the social architecture that fulfills my every need for camaraderie and conviviality. I learned how to live. When I asked how I could find self-esteem, you told me by doing worthwhile acts. You explained the big book had no chapters titled Into Thinking or Into Feeling, only Into Action. I found plenty of opportunity for action in AA. I could be just as busy and helpful to others as I wanted to be as a sober woman in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was never a joiner. But I got deeply involved in AA service because you told me if I did, I would never have to drink again. You said as long as I put AA first in my life, everything that I put second would be first class. This has proved to be true over and over again. So I continued to put AA and God first, and everything I've ever lost was returned many times over. The career that I lost has been restored with even greater success. The house that I lost has been replaced by a townhouse that is just the right size for me. So here I am, sober, successful, serene. Just a few of the gifts of the program for surrendering, suiting up, and showing up for life every day. Good days and bad days, reality is a wild ride, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. I don't question how this program works. I trust in my God, stay involved in AA service, go to lots of meetings, work with others, and practice the principles of the steps to the best of my willingness each day. I don't know which of those things keeps me sober, and I'm not about to try to find out. It's worked for quite a few days, so I think I'm going to try again tomorrow. Yeah, and that's all I got to say about that. We're going to lead with I dropped my chip while I was doing the hand thing. But yeah, so there we have it. If you have been listening for the past 77 minutes and change, I really appreciate it. We're going to do this again. We're going to try and do this at least once a month. And we're going to have some good old friends on here too, and some good people, and it's going to be good. And we do recover. We're going to be fine. My name is Jake Jones, and I will not drink with you tonight.